Hello, friends, and welcome to Lead to Gold, the podcast devoted to discussing all things growth and wellness. And I could use that right now. I could use a good conversation. So super glad you're here. Hope you stick around. Thanks for coming. And I would love to just kind of take a second to welcome you in to this space wherever you are. Imagine that we're sort of just chatting together, because we really are. You know, this is always a conversation that I would love to discuss more in social media, wherever you might find me. I've been really, actually, just as a quick side note, enjoying Threads lately. I've been able to talk to a lot of new people there. And so if you're interested in Threads, or if you're already on there, find me there. It just seems like right now kind of a nice alternative to Instagram DMs, because it's somehow easier to see when people are reaching out to you. I don't know if anybody else has this problem, but when I have to switch between like the general messages and the primary messages and then like message requests, it's always kind of hard to see them and respond to them. I think I'm just getting a lot of weird sort of shutdown with Instagram right now, just in my own brain. That's neither here nor there. But anyway, point being, if you want to discuss this further and actually like talk about it with me, I'm always open to that. So feel free to reach out. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Threads. All links are in the show notes. And just real quick before we like really get into everything, if you enjoy this conversation, please feel free to share it with a friend, so then you can also converse about it with them. I would love that so much. So in any case, hi. I missed you guys. I'm really excited to be bringing this up today, because the past few weeks have been a little bit insane, and I would love to give you all just a really quick life update on where I've been and what's been going on with me. And a lot of that, I would say 98% of that, it feels, has been work, just work. And we're kind of at that weird crossroads in the school year where we're in between a bunch of little holiday breaks. So I want to say, kind of leading into Thanksgiving break, things felt pretty good, pretty solid. We were in a good place with workload and just what we were going over. And I don't know what happened. Like, I had such an amazing Thanksgiving break. It was so relaxing and nice and cozy and comfy. And then we came back and everything just kind of hit the shitter, if you know what I mean. I don't know how to explain this exactly to people that aren't teachers or like that use online platforms like this, but my students often have to submit their work to a platform called Schoology. So it's kind of like Canva. If you are, in school and you've used Canva or Blackboard or whatever, it's similar to that. But anyway, it gives me a little notification on the side that says however many ungraded assignments I have to go through. And I have not gotten that number under 100 in probably 3 weeks. So it's been a little crazy. And that does not include all of the assignments that are on other platforms or on paper. And teaching AP, there's a lot of paper assignments also. So anyway, it's been a lot of that. I haven't been posting as much lately because I just like literally don't have time. And yeah, it's honestly just been a little bit stressful because the kids are ready to go. They're ready to have their long break. The teachers are ready to go and have our long break. And we even got like little touches of like, ooh, we might have a little snow day or we might have a little delay. And so far that has not happened. So slight bummers here and there. Just a lot of craziness going on, but that's to be expected for this time of year. And all things considered, I'm actually really happy with the way things are going. I've just been very tired and burnt out, and I'm trying to mitigate that. And I've kind of gotten this vibe going in these past few weeks where it just feels like I'm so busy with work and I'm so busy trying to like kind of keep things under control as best as I can that I'm not able to devote as much time to the things that are actually calling me, i.e. this, and like doing more of my passion project work with Lead to Gold, being able to promote stuff more, like create more, genuinely just create more for my own fun and my own benefit. Things have just felt very one-sided towards get this shit done and then you get to relax a little bit, or then you get to go do the things you enjoy. So honestly, that's been probably the hardest part of these past few weeks, is just I feel like I haven't had any time to do anything for me or anything for like my friends. And it's a little bit of a bummer. I'm sure we've all been there before, but as I'm recording this, we have 9 days until Christmas, and I have done virtually no wrapping. Some of my items that people are getting for Christmas haven't arrived yet, and I'm just like starting to feel that little crunch time. And I just hate that because I want this to feel, you know, joyful and peaceful and quiet, and I don't know, just sort of that nostalgic Christmas vibe that I'm searching for is not quite there. So, you know, it's all been a little crazy. But now that I kind of am in this place where there is a light at the end of the tunnel, as they say, and break is very close. This next week of school is 3 days, and they're all pretty much just like party days. So that's going to be fun. You know, I kind of get to like lean into that a little bit more and not be as stressed out, and actually get to spend good quality time with my students. So I'm very excited for that. And in the meantime, this upcoming week, I really am trying to prioritize making time to intentionally plan out and sort of reflect on a couple different things. So I'm talking about the past and the future here. You know, I want to reflect on how this year has gone, all the things that I've been able to achieve, even if it's not exactly what I hoped or expected. There's definitely still so many things to be grateful for and to be excited about for what's to come. So I definitely am intending to take a lot of time this week to get all of that out, you know, and just really sit with where we're headed. And I also feel like I talked about this in the last episode. So if it's any indication that I haven't quite gotten to do that work yet, here you go. I think I'm going to do more in depth in the next episode of Lead to Gold that's coming out on January 1st, by the way. So it feels very perfect for this conversation, but definitely just in the short story, I'm planning on really, really devoting more intentional time to this project. And I'm just super excited to see where that takes me and where that takes us as a community. So I don't know that anything's really changing, but I'm definitely hoping to put more thought and more deliberate work into this. Even though I am busy with the work that actually makes me money, I want to do this for myself and for ultimately, what's that word? The mission statement. There we go. Not the message, but the mission of Lead to Gold, which is that I want to serve as some sort of beacon for people that feel like they're just in the trenches and they don't know how to get out and need a little light, need a way to find the light in their lives. And that's ultimately what I want to do here. So that's all upcoming. That's all something I got to kind of plan out. And I'm just really excited to see where things go. Because right now in our world, as we all very well know, things have not been feeling super bright. Things have been very scary and very dark and hard to work through. And it's been this way for many, many years now. This may be part of the stress that I've just been feeling the past few weeks, but definitely in these past few weeks, I've just been feeling more aggressiveness and more like agitation out there, like in the ethers, on the internet, whatever, which brings me to today's topic. And that is rage bait, which is kind of an internet phenomenon, but also not really. So I'm really excited to get into this because it is something that has just become very apparent to me as a problem in our internet spaces, but also what that does to our society or like our larger culture. Before I go any further, I do want to sort of define rage bait for us. And we've all come into contact with it, even if it's not something that takes up a large space in our lives. It's something that we all, as internet users, come to face at some point. So the Wikipedia definition of rage bait or rage farming is a manipulative tactic to elicit outrage with the goal of increasing internet traffic. So it's all about getting views, getting engagement, getting revenue, and in some cases support. And it's sort of, that's like the whole entire purpose, is that it is meant to make people mad on purpose so that more people view it and talk about it. And I'm going to mention this later, but it just immediately, as I'm talking about it, makes me think of that phrase of all press is good press. And it's probably already obvious by the title of this podcast, but I really want to challenge that idea today because in one way, people are going to respond to things that make them angry. But why do we want to perpetuate this? That's really the question that I want to try to consider in this episode. We've all seen it, and it manifests in very different ways. So I want to also be kind of careful about what I'm defining as rage bait, because there are different levels to it, I believe. And there are also, of course, different levels of like severity, because some rage bait is just, stupid and like whatever. But some of it is actually actively harmful. So I want to get through all of those distinctions as well. It's whatever content that you're seeing that is purposely made to anger you or to anger an audience to some degree. And a lot of ways that I see this manifesting, or I guess I've been seeing this lately because I love, for some reason, watching video essays on YouTube of just like random shit. Most of the people that I watch are Gen Z. A lot of them talk about internet trends, and this is one of them. So I've seen a lot of videos lately of people trying really awful TikTok recipes. And this is a form of rage bait, right? Because it's like the grossest one that I saw recently was like Pringle pie or something. So they literally boiled Pringles until it was just mush. And then they put that in a pie crust and put like gross meat soup on top of it. I don't even know what to describe that as. And then put like gross cheese on top of that, like Cheese Whiz kind of cheese. And they put it in the oven and then they tasted it. And obviously it was awful, obviously. But it's like, I don't know if some people think that that is genuine. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's one manifestation of rage bait, is that like, to me, I'm like, very clearly this is fake and like they don't actually like this food, but people try it anyway. Anyway, some of the distinctions that I want to get into about what rage bait really is, because this is important, is that obviously in our culture and in the way that our news is run, we're going to have bad news. We're going to have propaganda. We're going to have disinformation and upsetting stories. Just all of these things come up all the time, right? We're experiencing all of these things all the time too. There's tons of theories that I don't remember the names of, and I don't feel like getting super into them in this episode, but there's lots of theories as to why news broadcasters always sort of focus on the bad stuff, right? And I think it does kind of relate to this theory of like all press is good press. Bad press is also good press. So, people respond more to bad things. People respond more to bad news. And propaganda, which is not the same thing, I've been talking a lot about with my students the past couple of weeks, because we are seeing so much war propaganda on our news feeds, on the news, in social media. And I don't know to what extent high schoolers are being exposed to that through their algorithms, but I know that they know the situation that's going on. And I feel quite responsible for making sure that they are aware of what propaganda is. And if we need a quick little definition, I will give it to you. So this might, I don't know, I hope this doesn't come off as a hot take, because this is quite literally the definition of propaganda, but we are seeing this from all sides right now. Everything. And I'm not just talking about the Israel-Palestine war. I'm talking most politically charged things. Propaganda is any type of communication that is used to influence or persuade an audience to further an agenda. It may not be objective, and it may be sort of like selectively presenting facts to encourage a particular perception. It can also quite often use loaded language, or I also call this with my students charged words, to produce an emotional rather than a rational response. So there you go. That's a direct tie to rage bait, although propaganda is a little bit different, I would say. And here's the thing that I think really does distinguish things like propaganda, bad news in general, even disinformation. The thing that distinguishes these phenomena from rage bait is that they are somewhat normal. And I don't mean that they are inherently fine. You know, a lot of propaganda is quite problematic. It's very nuanced, but they are somewhat normal. The degree to which we are exposed to them is very much not normal as we stand. But the very big difference is that, like, yeah, these things have happened. I'm not going to say rage bait hasn't always happened, but it is entirely unnecessary. It is completely unnecessary. The only thing it serves is that person who's making it. The only thing it could ever potentially serve is that person's views and engagement, which then leads to them making money. So ultimately, why am I addressing this? What does this have to do with growth and wellness, you might ask? Well, I believe that so much of what we consume creates our overall aura, and it creates a state of mind that we have a hard time escaping from. Because if we are constantly inundated with rage bait, which I feel like I'm not really seeing, like I don't look at stuff like purposely gross food recipes, but I have definitely been exposed to some of these like weird hot take woo-woo mom Instagram things, which I'll get into more in a minute. But people with purposely bad takes that are taking it way, way, way over the top and presenting it in a way that it seems genuine, I do see a lot of that. So the more that we are exposed to these kinds of things, i.e. rage bait, the more that reflects on our view of the world, whether we really think about it or not. The more we consume this stuff, the more it affects our well-being. So this is sort of a cautionary tale to really pay attention to the types of things that you are being exposed to, and absolutely pay attention to the emotions that arise when you view these things. If you immediately feel yourself getting angry at something that you're reading or a video that you're watching, it's probably rage bait. And the reason I say that is because these types of media use certain words, literally like certain words, that they know will get people riled up. And they are exacerbating a hot take that they know a lot of people are not going to agree with, and that they know a lot of people are going to argue about, so that they get that engagement in their comments. And if we're not careful, we become that person. We become the person that argues with people in the comments, until we realize that this person is literally just saying this to get us riled up. They probably don't even believe it themselves. So I'm really ultimately talking about this because it is something, like many things, that we need to be very careful about and very aware of in our media, because it's not good for us. It's not. And it's very hard to escape. It's very hard still to not want to respond or to not have a reaction at all, because we are humans and certain things just upset us based on our own confirmation biases and our own upbringings and our own beliefs. That's very hard to combat against, and these people know that. So that's really why I wanted to discuss this today, because we have to be vigilant in today's media society, if we want to call it that. Some examples I just mentioned, right? The gross food, these kind of weird TikTok housewife things that I've been seeing. Other things that I do pick up on that I would count as rage bait would be trolls in the comments, or anybody that is very obviously just picking fights with people because they feel like it, not because they actually care. It's interesting because all of this that I've talked about up until now has been information or media literally from the internet. Like, it's all on social media. But rage bait absolutely exists and affects things that are not on the internet, right? It affects our real life. And it depends to what degree you are consuming this kind of content, whether you even are aware of it or not. But I can absolutely tell you right now that I think a big part of why the last few weeks have been extra rough for me, not just because of the stress of work and feeling busy, but this is unfortunately a lot of what I have come in contact with in my downtime. And there's a few reasons for that, and it's not entirely out of my own control, right? Like, we do have a lot of control over what we see and what we consume, but in that state of just being completely burnt out and not having energy to do anything, I'm just like most people, I think, who reach for the phone and just scroll until the scrolling becomes doom scrolling, and until you're so far deep in these weird little internet rabbit holes that that's what you see. And then externally, because that's so much of what I've been consuming, outwardly in my own life and in my mental state, I start to feel really icky about the world and start to feel kind of hopeless about humanity, which is really upsetting. And obviously I don't want to be in that position, but again, when so much of what you're seeing online is this kind of thing, it becomes very easy, or I should say much easier, to become really agitated and angry in your own waking life. It's harder to have patience for real life people that you interact with. And I can attest to that in some of the conversations I've had to have with students in the past couple of weeks, in my patience levels, in my just tolerance for things that are not absolutely perfect and silent and good, which obviously working in a high school, you never have that. So rage bait really does have a full effect on our offline lives. And another thing that kind of came to mind for me as I was thinking about what to discuss with this episode is that I realize in what the purpose for rage bait is that it combines anger, right? It's meant to give people an angry reaction. It's meant to rile people up. It combines that with someone's own vanity, because they are effectively trying to get more engagement. They are trying to get attention. And in doing that, it's combining these two very, very low vibrational spheres for anybody to be in at any time: vanity and anger. And while I don't really think there's many attestable studies to this or anything valid about vibrations in emotions, I do appreciate the lingo of it to an extent, because it gives us a really clear picture of how it feels when we are absorbed in anger, or how it feels when we are absorbed in vanity, rather than in peace or in love, And I use this vibrational conversation as sort of a visualization of genuinely what that feels like. And it doesn't feel good to be in anger. We all know that. It doesn't feel good to be in a state of constant vanity. But absorbing this kind of content puts us in that place. And long term, that's just not good. We want to be able to see real humanity as good. And I'm going to get to that in a couple minutes as well. Before I do, though, I want to also just address some of the other ways that rage bait can really have severe consequences for our lives and for the things that we believe societally. And I have a few story times to go along with this too, which I'm like, oh God, this is yet another thing that's just been going on the past few weeks that kind of freaked me out. But let me not get ahead of myself. I am thinking of people who have really, really large online platforms who say a lot of what they say, I believe, to rile people up, not because they actually believe the things they're saying. And you probably already have a few people in mind just by me giving that description, but the one that immediately comes to mind for me is Andrew Tate. And people like him, people who are also sort of in that weird alpha male territory with the content that they're putting out into the world. This is just one example of many, but it's the one that immediately comes to mind for me where I'm like, I highly doubt that these people actually believe and actually practice what they're saying in their own waking lives. I don't know. I try not to speculate or think about it too much because it naturally upsets me. But yeah, the people like Andrew Tate and the people who support him and the people who go on his podcast, or I don't know, Alex Jones or people of that nature, they say things purposely to anger an audience that doesn't agree with them. And they say things in a way that people are going to respond negatively and start fights in the comments and therefore give them more engagement, which is obviously a problem because here's my story time. Young vulnerable people actually see them and believe them. And the past couple of weeks in my AP class, I have had several students write defending Andrew Tate himself. And again, I'm not going to get all up into this as a conversation because that's not the point of this episode, but it genuinely concerns me. And I think that's a valid fear, a valid feeling that these 16 and 17-year-old boys are hearing stuff that is obviously over-exaggerated, but believing it and believing that they are better than the women in their lives and believing that they should look up to this frankly horrible person as a role model. And to the point where some of them were even trying to say that he was proven innocent in his court case and all that stuff. And I'm just like, all right, I'm not even going to go there because his trial hasn't even happened yet, but whatever. You get the picture. Seeing how rage bait actually affects the way that we think about the people in our lives and the way that we think our society should work. And that is extremely harmful. I think that goes without saying. But now all of this begs the question, what do we do about this? What can we do about this? Because it's, as we've talked about, extremely hard to not react or have an inward emotional reaction to rage bait. It's very, very hard because these people, again, know what they're doing. They know what elicits a human emotional response, and they hope that it will be big enough for somebody to actually physically engage with that content. So what do we do about this? Because I absolutely refuse to believe that all press is good press. I refuse. And no matter how desperate anybody could ever be for attention, for wanting people to engage with their content, for wanting people to follow them or discuss things with them, whatever it may be. I do not believe that there is any moral, ethical excuse for using rage bait as a tactic to do that. And I don't like to judge, but I do judge people that use this. I do, because I believe in a time that we are in right now where there is already so much scary, dark, negative shit going on. Why do we want to open that floodgate and create more space for more content that elicits the same reaction that really just like awful news might? All of these things are giving us negative emotional responses, but why do we want to create more of that on purpose? It just doesn't make sense, other than to get attention on your own stuff. And to me, that's a pretty low reason to want to create more negativity. Why purposely add to that space when you have the capacity to act against it? And you could get the same amount of engagement by being a positive light, by saying something that is actually meaningful, that actually like hits that emotional place that we all want to be hit. You know, nobody wants to be angry. Nobody wants to be scrolling through their phone going, oh my God, this is awful. Everything is awful. I feel hopeless about the world. Nobody wants that. But unfortunately, it's out there and we see it, and we're addicted enough to our phones that we can't really avoid it. So anyway, what can we do about this? I think the most obvious answer and the most obvious thing to practice, myself included, is to become more conscious when scrolling, to become more focused and, I guess, deliberate in the things that we are consuming, whether this be online or offline. But I guess I am mostly speaking about online right now. Understanding when something that you're seeing is a form of rage bait because you are immediately getting an unpleasant reaction in your body. You are immediately feeling anger or nervousness or anxiety or the need to scream at somebody in the comments, you know? I've talked about this before on the show, but I really, really want to try to encourage anybody who ever even looks at comments, again, myself included, to not do that, because a big part of what gets us more involved in all of this discourse is looking through and seeing what people are saying. And sometimes it can be entertaining, sometimes it can be funny, but most of the time we're going to find some really, really heinous shit in the comments that, frankly, I don't really want to know about. I just really don't. And to speak about this more in an offline point of view, what are some things that we can do to sort of mitigate our capacity for holding anger and patience in a balance, right? In a way that we're not losing our temper at our children, or we can go about the world and go about our day having faith in humanity. What are some other things that we can do to kind of control that in our waking lives? Something that I try to think about as often as I can remind myself to is that the people that I engage with in real life, in real time, are genuinely just trying to get through their day and are genuinely just doing their best most of the time. People are not out here saying heinous shit just because they can, unless there is something deeper going on within. It is a rare, rare occasion. Even as crazy as everybody's making high schoolers and young kids sound nowadays, it is a very rare occasion that I have a kid say something genuinely awful just because they feel like it. It's not something that happens frequently. 97, I'd say, % of the children that I work with are amazing, amazing people. Or at least when they're not, they're trying to be. And it's things like that that I'm trying to remember about what these people online are also like, right? Because the real people online, not the bots, not the spammers and scammers that a lot of us are probably engaging with in the comments, but real people are just like the real people outside in the real world. They are just the same. It's just that, and we've talked about this for years, right? A lot of people were really worried about this when the internet started to really, really get popular and cyberbullying started to be a really big part of our discourse. A lot of people have recognized that when you go online, you're pretty anonymous and you can act a little bit more heinously than you might in your real life. You're less afraid to say things. So that is something that we also need to recognize about our human nature. I know in a lot of ways I'm a little bit more brave online. I'm a little bit more well-worded, I suppose, because I'm typing something out and I can sit there and think about what I'm trying to say rather than right now where I'm just kind of talking, or in general when I'm talking to people in real life. I'm not as brave. It's a lot harder to form a coherent thought when you're in the middle of a really big emotion, right? So all of these things are reminders for us to sort of combat the nature of rage bait. It's first knowing that in real life, people would not say that shit to your face unless they were really unhinged, which I hope you don't ever have to encounter. But that's the sort of thing. You know, it's like, oh, another example I just thought of rage bait is the concept of Karens have been so popularized the past couple of years that now apparently a lot of the content that we see about, oh my gosh, watch this Karen have a hissy fit in the mall, they're fake. They're just fake. We have influencers on YouTube who do reaction content and they watch these things as if they're real, and they're not real. And sometimes that even gets a little weird and meta because it's like, I can't tell if this person actually thinks what they're watching is real or if they know it's fake and they're just pretending that it's not fake. It just gets so confusing and weird. So the last sort of little bit of advice that I have on this is, now that I'm getting into all of these weird intricacies of the internet and how we behave and the things that we respond to and the little subcultures that we see responding to these things and talking so much about these things, is just get away from it a little bit. Get away from it a little bit. I love watching reaction videos on YouTube. I really do. And I think I might have said this earlier, but I watch a lot of video essays, and a lot of their subject matter is the same depending on what weird internet thing is trending. So right now, it's a lot of stuff about boy moms or how awful Gen Alpha kids are in schools. Things like that. Those are just a few off the top of my head that I've seen recently, and everybody, it seems, is talking about it. But that's a weird little internet bubble that I'm in. And I know that most of the people watching this are not seeing those things. It's just what I'm interested in, I guess, or it's what gets fed to me. And it is interesting, but it's just me for the most part. And I need to remember, as well as I think a lot of people need to remember, that this is not a reflection of the entire world. I'm going to say that again. This is not a reflection of the entire world. Rage bait is a stupid thing. I'm tired of seeing it, but it is so not a reflection of the entire world unless we make it one, which is kind of, I think, where I might be right now and where I think a lot of us are right now, because it is becoming a little bit more popularized. People realize that it works and they want that internet attention. It's so much harder nowadays to get traction on social media platforms. So it's no wonder that people are becoming desperate and using this as a tactic. But ultimately, I think it is incredibly important for the lot of us, anybody who finds themselves kind of stuck in this internet space of a lot of rage bait going on, or at least just hearing about it and knowing that it exists, and that in and of itself being deeply upsetting, which is completely valid because that's how I feel. I want us to all remember that this is not a reflection of the world. Which brings me to quite an upside of this, and something that I have also been seeing more of recently, and something that I hope continues to be an upward trend in media. And that is, there's a couple names for it that I've seen, but hope core or human core. And if you're not sure what that is, I will do my best to give a little rundown. But earlier today, I saw such a cute video that somebody put together of, it seemed like they were in New York City, but they were kind of just filming humans out there just doing human stuff. Like, there was a little frame of two girls in a coffee shop that were like sitting in a booth and playing a game and laughing with each other, or like a dad and a daughter on the subway, or a little girl like sticking her hands in a fountain, or some guy that looked like he was at a flea market with a big snake like wrapped around him, and he just looked like he was having a good day, you know? Little tiny snippets of humans just being humans. And I cannot explain to you how nice that video felt to watch in a stream of just like shit, you know? So I've been seeing more videos like that recently, and it made me really happy. And I'm hoping that this continues to be a trend. I'm also following a duo, I suppose, these two guys, and their @ is We Love You. I'll link them in the show notes because I'm just really obsessed with their stuff. But they post more scripted videos and more, I guess, beautified videos, but their messages are just incredible and very simple too. But they're good reminders that like things are good, things are okay. And last but not least, this is the biggest shocker of them all, but I was on Reddit the other day, which Reddit to me is the pinnacle of doom scrolling and rage bait. But I saw the best post I think I've ever seen on Reddit ever, and I'm going to read you a few things from it. It was an Ask Reddit thread, and the title of it was, "What is a good thing happening in the US right now that people aren't aware of?" So I know this one is just referring to the US. There may have been a question about other places, but, you know, a lot of stuff's dark here right now, so it was really nice to see this. But I'm going to give you a couple great examples from this thread. So a lot of main top posts that I picked up on were either related to the medical field or to environmentalism, both of which are really awesome things to be making advances in. So here were a few of my favorites, or the ones that I picked up on that I really liked. So the first one says, "We've discovered a drug that places a significant pause on multiple sclerosis progression and are in trials for what could very well be the cure." Another medical one. "There was a breakthrough on rabies treatment recently." Another one. "There is a new treatment for brain cancer. There have been no advancements in like 40 years. I should be able to take it next year and it will hopefully delay my tumor growth. It's pretty exciting. I've done 2 clinical trials. One didn't pan out. The other one, they won't have the information on for probably another 6 to 10 years. So I'm assuming this new one for this person is going to be major." And another one, kind of on a different side of the medical field. "Because of Mark Cuban's extremely cheap online pharmacy where you can get your prescription drugs for fractions of what major retailers like CVS or Walgreens sell them for, now CVS is beginning to switch to this model, so hopefully cheaper medicine for everybody will increasingly become a reality." Last one. "A breast cancer vaccine is in its early clinical trials." So all of these things, I'm like, absolutely, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, other good things. Every year in Atlanta and surrounding areas, Clark Howard and affiliates raise donations to give literally every single kid in foster care gifts of their choosing for Christmas morning. They make the quota every year, and participating in it is a Christmas tradition at my house. Google Clark's Christmas Kids and give what you can. Beekeeping and wildflower yards. Many folks are starting to actually do something to stave off ecosystem collapse by keeping honeybees and ditching yards for wildflowers and green spaces. After some really scary news in the late 2000s, bee populations have been steadily on the rebound. The city of Tucson, Arizona, did I say that right? Tucson? I don't even know. Tucson, Arizona, started an awesome pilot program to turn non-recyclable plastic waste into construction-grade building blocks. What else do we have that's environmental? Because there's a ton of them in here. The sea stars on the West Coast are returning after suffering a wasting disease a few years back. A new national park is going to be created in Maine. This has been making news for the last few years, but still fun to share. River otters are returning to their natural habitats. They were almost wiped out across the US and Canada because of pollution, fur trading, and development driving them out of their natural habitats. But thanks to efforts to clean up waterways and reintroduce the otters, they seem to be thriving and cropping up all over the country. In my city, they were even spotted in the river last year and hadn't been seen there for decades. And last but not least, just so we can kind of not go on forever, because I'm telling you right now, this post has almost 8,000 comments in it. And I scrolled on it for quite a while. And for the first time in a long time, I was not doom scrolling. I was, in fact, happy scrolling. And it was awesome. The last comment I wanted to share is just that somebody said, "This thread gives me hope for the first time in a long time." So all of these are just a few little examples of hope core. It's kind of the opposite of rage bait. It's putting things out into the media that give people hope, that give people a sense of, you know what? Everything is not only going to be okay, but like right now in this moment, everything is okay. Maybe not everywhere in the world, but people are still good. The world is still good. So I've talked also lots about this on Lead to Gold in lots of other places. I have plenty of posts about this on my blog, plenty of podcast episodes that have kind of touched on this idea, but I truly think that in a society, in a culture that we are currently in, where we are so inundated with bad news and shit like rage bait all the time, we have to remember that things are still good. Because if we completely lose sight of that, then what's the point? What is there really to live for if we don't fundamentally believe that things are okay, or that things can be okay, things can be made better, because we are still mostly good. And I just can't stress enough how important I believe it is to hold on to that idea. And I don't care if this message doesn't get a lot of traction. I don't care if I'm not going to be able to reach as many people as rage baiters can reach by posting what they post. But this is what I truly believe. And this is what I feel is my moral obligation, to get that idea out more into the world. So there you have it. And with all of that said, let's take a little moment here at the end of this episode to play a round of We're Not Really Strangers, Healing Edition. If this is your first time listening, I do this every single episode in some way or another. And the purpose of it is really just to focus on one question that I pull from a card of this healing expansion of We're Not Really Strangers. It's a little pack of cards. And if you feel so inclined, it might be helpful if you want to take a moment to grab a journal and reflect on this question yourself, or DM me about it, talk to a friend about it, and see how this question lands for you. So here we go. Oh my God. All right. Well, I'm gonna, this is so funny. I've also said this in a lot of episodes, but some of these are just like so spot on to whatever it was I was literally just talking about, that it's like uncanny. So I'm not going to go deep into this one actually, because I literally just did this entire last 50 minutes. And I'll pick another one in a second, but it does ask, what's been the worst thing for your mental health lately that's within your control to change? Take a guess, guys. Take any guess. Take any guess at all. All right, let me do the real question for today. Okay, this one I think I could get a little bit more into. So very similar question, but not entirely the same. How have you neglected your mental health recently? And what is one small way you can make it up to yourself? I actually have a great answer for this. So I might have alluded to this at the beginning of the episode, but just with the constant work, constant stress, insane burnout that has been going on recently, I think I have entered myself accidentally into a slight, I don't know if I want to call it depressive episode, but definitely a little dip. And I will say for sure that the past at least week, if not 2 or 3 weeks, my home has resembled much more of a depression cave than a home. It's been a lot less clean than I prefer it to be. A lot of my plants are dying, and that's been going on for quite some time, but I just haven't had the energy or motivation to really do anything about it. And this is gross, but I'm going to be really honest with you. I have not showered in almost a week. Yeah, that's gross. I know, but I have just been too exhausted, and I have been a little disappointed in myself, not only for that, but also just for not being able to check off the other tasks that I would like to get done, like going to the gym. I didn't go to the gym once this week. I haven't been moving around in general as much. I haven't been going outside as much. And I'm definitely noticing now that I am putting myself sort of in this position to be headed toward a more depressive state. And I know why that is. It's because I have been hyper focused on work, and I have been very stressed about getting grades done on time and within a timely fashion, so that I can not mess up my own future plans for the curriculum, and making sure that kids can see their grades on their essays and we can talk about it and we can learn from it. And I've been very hard on myself in getting those deadlines met, which is in some ways good, but in a lot of ways not so good, because it's just, there's in no world is it good that I haven't showered in a week, So I'm hopefully gonna get better soon about balancing the work-life stuff, and I normally am pretty good about it, but just these past few weeks have been, they have been a beast. So anyway, the small way that I am going to make it up to myself, and I have already decided this, tomorrow, which will be Sunday for me, I will be dedicating an entire day to self-care. I will be taking a good long shower, and then maybe even a bath afterward. Who knows? I will be shaving. I will be doing the skincare, and I might read a whole book. I might just sit on the couch and read an entire book. Who knows? I've had a couple loose ends that I haven't quite finished. I've been at the tail end of the Tao of Pooh and the Day of Piglet for quite some time now, so I definitely need to finish that book, which I could easily do in one day. I just haven't. I also have in my bag right now The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros, which is a nice little short read, and I could also read that in a day if I wanted to, but I haven't. And then I want to reread The Hunger Games. So I don't know. The world is my oyster, especially with reading. And I know tomorrow I will be dedicating the entire day to doing some things that have been put to the wayside for several weeks now. That includes bathing myself, cleaning my house, and sitting and reading. And I can't wait. I'm so excited. Tonight I'm going to go hang out with some friends that I haven't seen in a while. So I'm psyched for that. That's also going to be a way for me to make it up to myself, because I haven't seen my friends in weeks. And it's just time to get out of this rut. So here we are. We're doing it. And I'm very excited. And I'm also very grateful to have a community that I can actually share that with and be vulnerable about with. So thank you, especially if you have gotten all the way to the end of this episode. Thank you. I love you so, so much. And I'm just really happy that you're here. So my parting words, again, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with a friend. If you haven't rated, give it a little rating, give it a little review on whatever platform you listen. And I am just so grateful to have you here at all. So thank you, and happy holidays, because the next time we talk, it will be January 1st. And I'm so excited for that episode. It will be 1 year since the podcast launched. So prepare, because that will probably be the focal point of that episode. Well, spoiler alert. All right. I love you. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.